What's up guys, my name is Ace, and we're a little over a week away from Season 3 of Black Ops 6, and also the big return of Verdansk in Warzone. And I know I'm mainly just a multiplayer guy here, that's what I've been focusing on for the past several years of Call of Duty. I've been totally out of touch with Warzone, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't intrigued by the return of Verdansk. And I'm definitely looking forward to hopping back into Warzone and checking out Verdansk. I don't know if it's going to keep me around for very long, but I'm definitely looking forward to at least getting into it. And since at this point we still haven't heard any information about multiplayer for Season 3, I'm sure we'll get some as the week progresses. Today I wanted to talk about the new video they shared, where the developers showed off the new and improved Verdansk while discussing a lot of the improvements they've made to the map. Additionally, over the weekend, they did tease a couple things that I didn't want to make entire videos on, but I think it's worth mentioning at least in this video, so we will be discussing those a bit later. But first, let's talk about this new video they released showing off Verdansk, and this is the new and improved Verdansk. So it turns out, instead of just copying and pasting Verdansk from back in the day, they've effectively remastered Verdansk, while staying true to the layout. Now, some of the improvements they mentioned here is a lot of the vegetation and the mud and things like that. A lot of those details have been refined and improved and updated. Additionally, and I would say most importantly here, they were talking a lot about lighting and how they've adjusted the lighting, especially transitioning from outside to inside. That was one of the big problems I had with the lighting in Modern Warfare 2019. If you were outside looking into a building back then, it was often quite realistic in the sense that during the daytime, if you do that, you're gonna have a hard time seeing anything inside. The problem with that, though, is it doesn't really translate super well to a video game, at least in my opinion, especially with the gameplay style of Call of Duty. So based on how they worded it, plus based on the clips we're seeing here, it seems like there's going to be less of that harsh transition from outside to inside, and I'm hoping this will mean improved visibility in those darker areas, so you don't have character models that are like literally invisible, but they can very clearly see you because they're inside and you're outside. Additionally, a lot of the textures have been updated and modernized. It also appears you are going to be able to swim on the south part of the map. This is something that at this point I think has still just been leaked. I don't believe they've officially confirmed this yet, but this did come from a reliable leaker, and just taking a look at the water sections from the video clip, to me at least, it looks like you will be able to swim in there. I don't think this is going to affect how the map plays too much unless you happen to get a circle that ends in that area. It's just going to prevent those situations where you literally insta-die the moment you touch that water, like you did back in the day with Verdansk when we couldn't swim. Outside of that, though, it doesn't look like they filled up the rivers or anything and allowed you to swim across those. Those are the same as they were back in the day. And it also appears they stayed very true overall to the original layout of Verdansk. However, there was another clip that was shown as well, where they talked about a couple areas where they have added a few extra pieces of cover just to address some problem areas where players had problems rotating across certain areas, like from the farmland over to downtown. They specifically mentioned they added a couple vehicles as well as a bus. So we'll have to wait to see what else they've done as far as adding new pieces of cover or changing things. Hopefully they didn't go too overboard on this. I'm open to the idea of them making a few small adjustments, as long as it doesn't like fundamentally change how the map plays overall. So overall, I'm happy with what I'm seeing there so far. However, that's just talking about the map itself. And I think there are things that are much more important than the map itself coming back. Specifically, the cheating situation. I think that's the #1 most important thing for the launch of Season 3. From what I've been seeing, cheating is still out of control. However, over the past couple weeks, I've seen reports of many cheat providers being shut down, with Activision sending them cease and desists, and they are complying with those, so they are shutting them down. Based on my understanding, the really big cheat providers are still up and running, and those are the main problems, but it's nice to see they're at least targeting those, and we'll just have to wait to see what that big anti-cheat update looks like when Season 3 actually comes around. And then on top of the cheating situation, which like I said, that's the #1 most important thing, the gameplay mechanics are also very important when returning to Verdansk. Many people want the experience to be like Verdansk as well. They don't just want the map, they also want a lot of the same mechanics. And this is where we can get into a couple of the teasers that we got from Call of Duty. So these are official images. And the first one here is just showing off floating loot. This is returning. It is confirmed now. This was leaked for a while, but it's officially confirmed. But then on top of that, we got a bit of a tease for the buy station. It looks like they're returning to vertical menus and a very familiar buy station look and layout compared to the original Verdansk. So at least based on these couple of teasers we've seen so far, it does appear they're really trying to dial back a lot of the mechanics to be like back in the day when we had the original Verdansk. But we'll have to wait to see just how far they end up taking that. Like, I suspect they're not going to be dropping Omni movement. That's probably still going to be there, and that in itself is going to feel very different from the movement back in the original Verdansk. Also, our weapon selection and weapon balance, that's obviously going to be very different from what we had back in the day with Verdansk. And then a big question that's up in the air right now is vehicles. How are they going to play? How are they going to be balanced? And for a lot of this stuff, we're going to have to wait to see probably throughout the week. I suspect they're going to continue trickling out information for us. We're probably going to get like a big blog post explaining a bunch of things. And usually I just ignore the Warzone side of things, but not this time, at least for the time being. While I'm interested in Warzone, I will be covering a bit of Warzone stuff. And who knows, if it does bring me back in and hook me back into Warzone, maybe even down the road, I'll continue to cover it and do like breakdown videos again. Don't worry, I'm not abandoning multiplayer. I'm still very excited to see what we get for the multiplayer side of things for Season 3, since the game has been quite stale on the multiplayer side. And apparently, based on leaks, Season 3 is going to be very big for multiplayer as well. But we'll just have to wait for some real official information to come out for that. And with that, that's pretty much it. That's going to wrap it up for today's quick video. And this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. Based on everything we've seen so far, are you guys looking forward to Verdansk returning? Or maybe not so much? And also, what are some of the things you're hoping to see multiplayer-wise for Season 3? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.